Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open a fascinating and, frankly, a pretty terrifying study. It goes straight to the heart of the publishing industry's biggest fear. Can AI write creative, expert-level fiction in the specific style of a major author? And, I mean, if it can, what does that actually cost?
The stakes here are,
Mm.
well, they really can't be overstated. You're looking at a U.S. publishing industry that supports hundreds of thousands of jobs. We're talking about $30 billion in annual revenue. And the core of that industry, the books themselves, they're now the essential and often unlicensed training data for these massive LLMs.
Right, from companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google.
Exactly. And that unauthorized use is what's fueling, dozens of these huge copyright lawsuits that we're all watching.
It is. And those companies, they're defending themselves by saying their AI outputs are transformative, that they don't, directly compete with or substitute for human-authored books. Our mission today is to really unpack this study because it delivers a surprising, measurable, and, well, a highly empirical answer that seems to just pull the rug out from under that defense.
And this is where we have to establish the core finding right up front. The study found that readers, and this includes highly trained literary experts, they decisively preferred AI-generated excerpts over the ones written by human experts.
Okay, but there's a huge catch.
A huge catch. This preference only happened under one crucial condition, when the AI was given specialized intensive training specifically on that author's past work.
Okay, so let's get into the experiment itself. Because for a finding like that to be credible, we need to know they didn't just compare, GPT-4 to someone writing fan fiction online.
Oh, absolutely not. The rigor was paramount. This was a really conservative test.
So who are the humans?
The humans in this competition were MFA-trained expert writers. They were recruited from programs that are, widely considered the literary elite in the U.S. We're talking about graduates from top-tier programs like the Iowa Writers Workshop, NYU, Columbia.
So the best of the best.
The best of the best. The researchers specifically chose them to make this the toughest possible test for the AI. Because, if AI can compete with these top emerging talents, well, the potential disruption for the vast majority of working writers is just magnified.
And what was the actual task they were given?
The task for both the human MFA writers and the AI was difficult and very specific. They had to create an excerpt up to 450 words, and it had to emulate the style and voice of one of 50 internationally acclaimed authors.
Authors with really distinctive styles, I assume.
Hugely distinctive. Nobel, Booker, and Pulitzer winners. The big brand names in global literature like a Margaret Atwood or a Salman Rushdie or Han Kang.
And then the judges. Who was deciding who won this stylistic face-off?
They had two judging panels. The first was 28 expert readers. A lot of the MFA candidates themselves, actually, who really specialize in detecting stylistic nuance.
Okay.
And the second panel was 131 lay readers. Think of them as a general educated audience. And critically, they did blind, paired evaluations. They had no idea who wrote what.
And they were judging on two things.
Two things. Stylistic fidelity. So how well did the text capture that author's specific voice? And then just overall writing quality.
Okay, this brings us to the two key AI conditions they tested. This is so important because it shows the difference between a general tool and, well, a specialized weapon.
That's a great way to put it. Condition one was the baseline. It's called in-context prompting. It's what most of us do when we use these tools.
Right.
The LLMs, they tested GPT-4o, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and Gemini 1.5 Pro. They got the exact same prompt instructions and examples as the human writers. They had to rely on their massive general knowledge base to try and mimic the style.
So it's like a brilliant actor who's read every play ever written and can do a serviceable impression of any character, but they haven't, lived the part.
Precisely. They have the general knowledge. Now, condition two, the one that broke the experiment, involved fine-tuning. For this, they took GPT-4o, and in addition to that prompt, they additionally trained it specifically on that target author's complete body of work.
So that's our brilliant actor, not just reading the play, but being locked in a room for a month with every performance, every interview, every stylistic note ever written about that single author.
Yes. They became a dedicated specialist. They stopped generalizing and started internalizing the specific unique structures, rhythms, and vocabulary of that single writer.
So let's start with the baseline, condition one, the raw prompted AI. How did that serviceable generalist stack up against the human literary elite?
Not well. Not well at all, especially from the expert perspective. The expert readers strongly dislike the AI text. When they were judging stylistic fidelity, the odds ratio, or OR, was 0.16. For writing quality, it was 0.13.
Okay, let's pause on the jargon there for a second. An odds ratio, what does that mean for you listening at home? An OR of 1 is a 50-50 split. If it's below 1, the first option is losing. So 0.16. What does that mean in plain English?
It means that in a direct blind face-off, the experts preferred the human-authored text roughly 6 to 8 times more often than the raw AI text.
So they can spot the machine?
They could spot the machine, and they really didn't like it.
That makes sense. But the lay readers, they were a bit more forgiving, weren't they? They didn't notice the difference as much.
Significantly more forgiving. They showed no real preference on style, but they actually favored the AI text slightly for overall writing quality. They picked the AI excerpts in 61% of the quality trials.
So raw AI writing, while it's too generic for the pros, is perfectly fine for a general audience.
It's appealing, yeah.
So why did the experts reject it so strongly? What was that AI-ness they were detecting that the general reader just missed?
Well, past research has shown that this kind of baseline LLM writing it's very formulaic. Think of it as the literary equivalent of Muzak. It hits all the right notes, but it lacks any soul.
Right, cliches, purple prose.
Exactly. Full of cliches, unnecessary exposition, and critically, it just lacks a distinctive personal voice. The experts were spotting that, and the AI detection tools confirmed it. They flagged a whopping 97% of these raw AI texts as machine-generated.
Easily detectable.
Easily detectable, and just not convincing to the pros.
Which sets the stage for the big reversal. Condition 2, the fine-tuning. This is the part of the study that just fundamentally changes the entire conversation.
It completely reversed the results. Remember, the experts preferred humans 6 to 8-fold in the first condition.
Yeah.
When they evaluated the fine-tuned AI, the odds of experts selecting the AI excerpt were now 8.16 times the odds of selecting the human excerpt for stylistic fidelity.
Wait. 8 times. Did you say 8 times?
8.16 times.
I need to let that sink in. That means if you put a piece written by an MFA expert next to the fine-tuned AI, in almost 90% of those head-to-head trials, the literary professionals, they pick the AI. I'm having trouble squaring that. Are we really saying the AI is already superior to the next generation of literary talent when it comes to mimicry?
That is precisely what the empirical data suggests. And for overall writing quality, the odds ratio was still 1.87 in favor of the fine-tuned AI.
Wow.
And the lay readers showed comparable shifts. The predicted AI win probability ended up at about 74% for stylistic fidelity across both groups.
So what's the mechanism here? How did it make that leap? It didn't just get better at imitation, it somehow shed its machine signature.
Absolutely. The fine-tuning basically served as an anti-cliche filter. The researchers noted that cliche density was a key factor that was just substantially reduced after the model internalized an author's complete works. The AI wasn't just imitating structure, it was inheriting unique, non-generic stylistic choices.
And the proof that it shed that signature is in the detection rates, right?
Correct. The AI detection rates just plummeted. The fine-tuned outputs were rarely flagged. Only 3% were caught by one of the tools. It evaded detection 97% of the time.
And this allowed it to bypass its own, polite guardrails. I thought the example in the study was stunning. The general LLM, because of its default constraints, couldn't replicate the idiosyncratic, ribald, and profane voice of certain authors.
Right, like a Tony Talafamid or a Junot Diaz, it would just generate safe, polite text.
And the experts would immediately call that out as inauthentic.
Instantly. But after being fine-tuned, the model could use the specific, unique, sometimes profane slang and literary flourishes of that author. And the experts then immediately appreciated that as authentic, and even preferred it to the human version. The fine-tuning gives the machine permission to be idiosyncratic.
Okay, now we have to pivot to the cold, hard economics, because this is where the findings become, staggering for the labor market. We've established superior quality, but if it still cost $1 million, the industry could probably survive. Let's talk about the true cost of this new artistic competition.
The difference is, it's catastrophic for the human labor market. The median cost for fine-tuning the model on an author's complete works, plus the cost to generate 100,000 words of text, was only $81 per author.
$81?
Median cost. It ranged from about $25 to $276.
$81 for an AI to generate a full novel-length manuscript in the preferred style of a literary master, compared to what would a human expert typically charge for that?
A human professional writing a 100,000-word manuscript.
Yeah.
The estimate is around $25,000 for a raw text compensation. So the AI cost represents a 99.7% reduction in labor cost.
That's not a cost saving. That's a market cataclysm. Who benefits from that $24,900 difference? It's the LLM company or the publisher who helps the tech. It just fundamentally devalues the creation of raw creative text.
It does. And here's where the threat gets really specific. The performance gains, that fine-tuning premium that made the AI superior, were entirely uncorrelated with the size of the author's body of work.
Wait, what? So you're saying even the most niche, less prolific authors, the ones with only a few books and thus the cheapest fine-tuning cost, they're just as vulnerable to perfect emulation as someone like Atwood?
That is the implication.
Yeah.
It suggests the LLMs are learning structure and stylistic rules very, very quickly, rather than just relying on volume. An author with a fine-tuning cost of $25 could be emulated just as effectively as one costing $200.
It's a democratized quality disruption. Every author is now vulnerable.
Yes.
So if the technology can achieve demonstrably superior quality for the majority of authors with a 99.7% cost reduction, the conclusion is unavoidable. This study provides empirical, quantitative evidence of substantial market displacement for creative writers, even at the elite level.
That's the synthesis. Superior quality, massive cost savings, and the ability to capture distinct individualized style. And this raises the critical question of what this means for all those ongoing copyright lawsuits. Because this data, it's weaponized evidence.
Yeah, you have to frame these results around the fourth fair use factor. That's the part of the law that assesses the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work.
And historically, AI companies have argued that training on books is transformative. It changes the original work for a new purpose, so it doesn't substitute for the original.
But this changes that argument completely.
It does, because while copyright law doesn't protect style itself, just the expression, the fact that the fine-tuned AI outputs serve as credible, preferred, and undetectable market substitutes for the original author's style is the key legal point here.
The product the AI is creating now directly competes with the product the human writer sells.
Exactly. And the U.S. Copyright Office has already recognized this risk of market dilution, where the speed and scale of AI generation just floods the market with competing works. This study shows the AI can now produce exactly that kind of competing work.
I remember in the Cadre v. Meta case, the judge basically laid out a roadmap for authors to prove this. He said they have to demonstrate the AI's capability to generate substitutional books and show competition.
And this study provides exactly that empirical evidence of capability.
And here's the crucial legal nuance from the study. The argument is that this fine-tuning step, it should potentially not be considered fair use, because this narrow, specific training makes the model less transformative and far more likely to substitute for the original work.
Right. The Copyright Office itself noted that fine-tuning usually narrows down the model's capabilities. The argument is, if you take thousands of books to train a general model, that's one thing. But if you then spend 81 wonders to make it hyper-specialized and substitutive, that final step crosses a line into infringement.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to understand this new reality? Let's just summarize the two essential takeaways.
First, fine-tuning an AI on an author's complete works fundamentally changes its ability to write like a human expert. The text goes from being easily detectable and rejected to being preferred and critically undetectable.
The machine can now master a specific human style. And second, this proven capability, coupled with that staggering 99.7% cost reduction, poses a direct, quantifiable, and immediate economic threat to creative writers.
Yes, even the elite ones whose value was tied to their unique, distinctive voice.
So what are the solutions? The source material suggested a few guardrails.
One approach is using refusal protocols, where developers just disable outputs if a user explicitly prompts for content in the style of a specific named author. They can already do this pretty easily.
The other proposed solution is about transparency, conditioning any fair use rulings on the prominent disclosure of an output's AI origin. The assumption there is that if you, the reader, know it wasn't written by a human, you'll be less inclined to choose the machine-generated substitute. It brings human intent back into the decision.
That could be a powerful point of leverage for human creators.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought. If an LLM can use minimal data and minimal cost to capture an author's distinctive voice so effectively that literary experts actually prefer the machine, should the copyright debate shift entirely? Maybe we move from protecting the specific text itself to protecting the unique stylistic signature of the writer. Treating that voice, that specific pattern of language and rhythm, as a protected asset might be the only viable long-term strategy to safeguard the human craft in the face of near-perfect, 99.7% cheaper machine emulation.